Okay, so that addresses one of our problems with keyboard navigation. Another problem, though, is the ability to bypass blocks. Now, that's language that's used in the WCAG. I'm going to jump over here, and I'm going to do a search for bypass blocks. Okay, so this is section 2.4.1, and it says a mechanism is available to bypass blocks of content that are repeated on multiple web pages. Now, what this means is that if we scroll up to the top, I'm going to do a quick refresh, and we hit tab, what we're going to have to do is tab multiple times in order to navigate to the main content of the page. So about 10 times we'll have to tab before we get into the main content. Now what this means is that if the user wants to interact with the main content of the site, every time they're going to have to hit tab at least 10 times to jump to this main area. So the solution to this is to make sure that the first time the person hits tab, it goes to a link that allows them to jump to the main content of the page. Now, if we didn't care about the visuals of this mechanism, we could approach it like this. So I'm going to go to our index.html file, and up here, right after our body, I'm going to add a link. And what we're going to do is set it to go to the hash symbol and then main. And what this means is that when this A link is clicked, it will navigate to the element on this page that has the ID of main. And you'll see that in just a moment. And we'll put in for the text navigate to main content. All right. And then we'll scroll down, and then our main content starts right here. And we could set an ID on this to main. Now, as we move through this process, we're going to do a slightly different thing, which is wrap a div around all of the content on the page and set it to the ID of main. But we don't necessarily have a good reason to do that just yet. We're just trying to figure out what to do about this keyboard navigation. So let's save this and jump back to the browser and refresh. And so we have this link, navigate to main content. If we hit tab, you can see that this is highlighted, and we can hit space in order to activate that link. And that jumps us past all of the header into the main content of the page. Now that works pretty good, but we now have this link that's going to drive our designer crazy. So what we want to do to get around this is to make this link visible only if it's active. To do this, we'll hide it just like we hid the radio buttons in our Contact Us form by setting the position to absolute and then setting the left to a large negative value. And then when it's in its active state, we'll bring it back here in the flow of the content to allow the user to see what they would be clicking. So to be able to do our styling here, we need to give this element a class. So I'm going to jump back to the editor, and I'll scroll up to our link here, and we'll give it a class. And so what should the class be that we give this? Well, it depends. Do we think about this as an independent component, or is it actually part of the header? To me, it feels like it's part of the header, because if the header was gone, then we wouldn't need to skip the header to go to the main part of the navigation. So what I'm going to do is cut this element here, and I'm going to paste it right inside of the header. Now the naming convention for our class becomes a little bit more clear. So we'll call it site header, and then I'll call this element skip. Now let's open up the site header partial. So site header.scss, and I'm going to scroll up to the top, and I'll add a selector here. We'll use the ampersand to pull in the .site header, and I'll add skip. And now by default, we're going to use the position absolute with the large negative margin trick. And so now we want to override the look if this link is focused on. So we're going to use the ampersand to pull in the full class name, and then to indicate the state, we'll use the colon and then focus. Now we've done this before with other links where we want to style it the same regardless of what the state is. And so for this, what we'll do is set the position to inherit to kind of reset it back to what it was before, and we'll do the same thing with the left. We'll save this, jump back to the browser and refresh, and then we don't see the link, but if I hit tab, then we see our link in the upper left-hand corner, and we can hit space in order to jump to the main part of the site. Nice. All right, so I think that squares us away for keyboard navigation.